This weekend, the world champions, the Springboks, take on Tonga in a crucial Rugby World Cup group stage fixture, which could determine the finishing position in the pool and who their opponents will be. And to help us talk about this and other matters related to the Rugby World Cup, we are joined by author and rugby journalist Gavin Rich. Gavin, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on Sports on Morning Live.
Good morning, V. Thanks for having me on.
Gavin, I want to start talking about the South African Tonga fixture, because we know we've met Tonga before in the Rugby World Cup in 2007. And in that instance, we needed the cavalry to come and rescue that encounter. And we look a couple of years down the line, Tonga is a much improved side, also with the aid of some changes in the international rugby laws. So I want to speak to two things. Firstly, speak to us about the law that allows these players now to play for their native countries. And secondly, could this fixture be tougher than the average Bok fan thinks it will be?
Well, first of all, V, I'm not so sure that Tonga have actually kicked on since 2007. I think of the three Pacific nations in this World Cup, they're probably the worst at the moment. Samoa and Fiji are definitely better than them. And I think Tonga were far more competitive, let's say, way back in 2007. And we mustn't forget that in that game that they played, I think it was in Lens, if I remember correctly, in that game back in 2007, South Africa were coming off the high of just having beaten England, actually thumping England, who were the reigning World Cup champions at that time. And I think they were a little bit complacent. Jake White chose his second string team for that game. And then the minute he brought his first choice guys on, they went on to win the game. It was quite a shock actually at the time, because nobody expected Tonga to be that competitive. The change that you're talking about is one that allows players of that have been born or domiciled in a certain area to go back and play for those countries. It is specifically, from what I understand, aimed at the Pacific Island area, with all the Polynesian communities. Remembering, of course, that a lot of those guys ended up playing in New Zealand and qualifying for the All Blacks. But I'm not so sure. Everybody keeps talking about the guys that have come through and are playing for Tonga at the moment. To me, they're a bunch of old codgers, most of them, guys who were very good maybe 5 years ago, but are now sort of at the end of their careers. And to me, it's almost like a sort of a bit of a sort of old Kiwi 15. Let's call them a team of Kiwi players who were good a couple of years ago and now aren't so good, and are sort of now ending their careers playing for their native country. I'm not so sure that that's actually really good for Tonga. You may notice that in their games that they've played in this World Cup, they've been competitive maybe up to the 50th or 60th minute. And then after that, they've fallen away. Deon Ferreira's a freak. He can play at 38, but not everybody else can. And I think that's a problem for Tonga.
All right, so it sounds like you pretty much think it's done and dusted for the Boks in terms of a victory there. I want us to also touch on Pollard. We see that he gets into the team this weekend, and the Bok coaching staff have said that as South Africans, we need to manage our expectations in terms of his performance on the field. Let's speak to how long you think Handre will manage to play in terms of time on the field, and what boxes we're looking for him to take in this encounter against Tonga.
Well, what I would like to see Pollard do, if he's going to actually be part of the big games going forward, what I'd like to see Pollard do is return to the player he was in 2014 when he made his debut, before all the flair and attacking skill was coached out of him. You may remember that back in 2014, one of his first big games for the Springboks was against the All Blacks at Ellis Park, and he scored 2 tries. He set up a whole lot of others. He did really well by attacking the gain line. But then after that, he started to play from the pocket a lot. He started to play a much more conservative game. And, everybody's coming down on Manie Lebok for his place kicking. But there's more to half play than just kicking a goal.
Yep.
And my concern is that when you go back to Pollard, maybe you're going back to a more conservative game, which maybe won't suit the Springboks. I think that, I think that Pollard's role at this World Cup should really be to come on as an inside centre later in the games, so that he's there to kick the clutch kicks like Pollard did against Wales. But everybody's talking about Pollard as if he's Nas Botha as a place kicker. He is. Look at his stats. He's He's not actually that much better than Manie Lebok, who was the top URC point scorer last year, don't forget. So it's, a lot of people are getting quite sort of alarmist about it. And yes, the Springboks have a place-kicking problem, but I'd like to see Andre Pollard actually play well as a flower half and not just kick goals.
Let's go a little bit deeper in terms of that centre discussion, because, I mean, you do know we do have other centres. We have Dialende, we have Estes and good players there. So would you then move them out of place to bring in a Pollard?
No, I would look at, when I said that, I said that bring him on late in the game. Mornay Steyn, lest it be forgotten, was the guy who won the series against the British Lions 2 years ago. He came on in the last minutes specifically to kick the goal that would win the game. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm saying that there's no ways you drop Damien Dialende now. And Andre Esterhuizen is a really good player too, and he brings the Springboks what they want from a number 12. And if either of those two if both of those two were injured, my option at number 12 would actually be Damian Willemse, who is a brilliant number 12 in my opinion. But I'm just talking about a specific role that he would play. Be there to kick the goals when the game is tight. I agree with those who say that last week, instead of kicking the long range or trying to kick the long range penalty with Faf de Klerk, the Springboks should have been kicking the Irish into the corners and trying for a mauling try. They beat the All Blacks, don't forget, a couple of weeks ago in a warm-up game. Thrashed the All Blacks by playing that kind of rugby. They didn't kick at goal. They set up the mauling drive and they beat the All Blacks that way. And I think that is a route that maybe has been sort of neglected. They played some odd tactics last week in Paris. I'd like to see them. I just think Manie Lebok isn't a player that you just throw away, because he brings a sort of dynamism to the Springbok attacking. They have a creativity that they haven't had for a long time. In fact, I don't think that they've had it in a profession, maybe since Henry Honeyball, to be honest. And Andre Pretorius to some extent, but they haven't had that kind of flower half for a long time. And I think that I definitely think that Manie Lebok is the guy to go forward with after this World Cup. So ruin his confidence, and I just think that they've got a massive dilemma, because it's not as simple as people think. You don't just bring in the one guy for the other guy, because Manie actually is fitting well into the Springbok game at the moment. Yes, he's missing kicks from the tee. It's just a huge pity we don't have a Percy Montgomery or somebody like that that at fullback that can actually kick the goals. Remember, it wasn't Butch James, the Springbok flower half, who kicked the goals in 2007 when the Springboks won the World Cup in France. It was in fact Percy Montgomery, and I think that's what it's just a huge pity. I mean, there've been a lot of players that have kicked goals from other positions, and it's just a pity Springboks don't have that at the moment. But maybe Andre Pollard can do that in this World Cup.
Perhaps we'll wait and see.
Coming on as an inside centre replacement.
We'll wait and see. Gavin, unfortunately, we've run out of time. I still would want to touch on that group that has France, Italy, and New Zealand, because everyone thinks it's granted that it will be France and New Zealand going through, but we know that Italy's been playing some good rugby as well. But unfortunately, we've run out of time. Hopefully, we'll be able to catch up with you soon before this World Cup ends. Thank you so much, Gavin.
No problem. I can tell you, Italy won't be going through. It will be New Zealand and France. That's a debate that's not to be had.
Okay, it's a debate that's not to be had. It's going to be France as well as New Zealand, says Gavin Rich.